Good. All right. Would you all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. We're going to open this evening with a public hearing on the Hodgson Street CDBG project and action on that public hearing item. Everybody has been able to sign in. You got everything you need, Matt, on the?
Finding the other folks there.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to open up with a project review from, I believe we have Andrew on Zoom from Gartley and Dorsey. And whenever he's ready, we can open up the Zoom presentation to him. And
I am here. How is everybody doing?
yeah, we're
Good,
doing
Andrew.
well, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah. We're going to give
You
you
all
the
hear
full
me well?
here.
So my name is Andrew Hedrick. I am a civil engineer from Gartley and Dorsey, engineering and surveying. We were contacted by the town probably more than a year ago now. I think it was actually in 2019 where this all started, to review Hodgson Street in town there. They basically reached out to us. They knew they had some drainage issues on that road. They had some mobility issues. The road was deteriorating, so they came to us to have us do an assessment of the road, investigate what was going on, and then to provide them with some recommendations for a solution to make improvements. During our first initial investigation of the road, it was very clear that there are several deficiencies with the road. The primary two that we noticed was the road was very narrow. The road is basically anywhere from 9 to 12 feet wide. It takes about 18 feet to pass cars simultaneously. So it was far too narrow for a 2-lane road. In addition, the drainage system just does no longer functions as intended. There are culverts underneath the road, but they're filled in and they're failing. They're degraded. They need to be replaced. So what happens during rainstorms and ice storms is the water flows down the edge of the road, stays on the road, doesn't have anywhere to go, and it ultimately freezes up. During one of my inspections in the winter, I observed about 6 inches thick ice, basically stretching, a couple hundred feet along the section of road. And just to be clear, for the Hodgson Street section, we're talking about the Pleasant Street end. So it starts at Pleasant Street and it stretches about 500 feet up towards the cemetery on that road there. So it's that section to the east after the Pleasant Street intersection that we investigated. So after we looked at the road, we assessed that there was poor drainage, the road was too narrow. We came up with a couple of schematic designs that included widening the road. So we proposed to widen the road to 18 feet wide, and then include a closed drainage system that will collect the stormwater, route it along Hodgson Street, and discharge it into the existing drainage system on Pleasant Street. After we came up with these schematic designs, Matt coordinated and we set up a meeting with all the abutters out there, the landowners that were going to be impacted by this. It's a real close area. If not everybody's familiar with it, the houses are very close to the right of way through that section. The driveways are very close. There's parking that happens within that. So we were aware that it was a very sensitive area to be working. So we met with all the landowners out there. Fortunately, I believe we were able to get everybody, all the 8 houses right there, I think it's 8, that were directly impacted by this. They were all there. We reviewed the project with them. We discussed some options, including making this a one-way road at one point that was discussed. But ultimately what we decided on was that we would keep the entrance, the western end of Hodgson Street at 18 feet wide, and then we taper it down just as we got towards the cemetery, back to its existing 12-foot wide section. But we would paint fog lines along the edge that were in from the edge of the shoulder of the road. So we're proposing to paint the fog lines along the road, which are those white lines that traverse the edge of the road. We're going to paint those in about 3 feet from the edge of the road. So what that will effectively do is it'll give you a visually narrowing road. The road will appear to be about 12 feet wide in the center, and then you'll have that shared 3-foot lane on either side of the road that you can use for vehicles to pass by and people to walk down along that section. So it seemed to serve the purpose of preventing a too wide of a road while maintaining what they had and keeping everything in tight. As I mentioned, the new drainage system, essentially, we're putting it on the south side of the road. We're going to pitch everything towards that south side. Right now, there's no real crown on the road. All the water just kind of runs where it wants to go. So we're going to direct it towards the south side. We're going to incorporate curbing along that section of the road as well, just on that southern side, so that we can control the water. We can redirect it into catch basins and a closed drainage system. And we have coordinated with all the abutters through that section to ensure we knew where they wanted curb cuts, where we needed to address parking, to make sure that we could accommodate what they were looking for out there, rather than prohibit them from continuing to use the right of way. Again, it's really narrow. There's several properties there that have parking that occurs within the right of way. There's a couple of buildings that are within the right of way. So it is very sensitive, and we didn't want to impact them directly. So we were able to move the road around to minimize impacts to all those abutters in that section of road there. But that's the kind of the big picture of what we're proposing to do there. Like I said, there was one of the design considerations, just to point it out, is I think it's aesthetically pleasing. There's a stone wall that runs along the northern section of the road for about 150 feet. It's pretty prominent down there, kind of defines the edge of that road. I didn't want to impact that. That wall is about 10 feet at least into the right of way through there. So that is within the town's right of way. But to avoid impact to that, we were able to design the road so that we would minimize and only impact like the lower foot and a half of that wall, potentially as much as 2. But essentially we were able to save that wall, keep that in place, keep that aesthetic look. It'll just be a little bit shorter than it currently is. And we were still able to pull the drainage and make the road improvements that were necessary to that we were recommending, at least.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. But this time we can open it up to the floor if anybody has any questions or comments for Andrew at this time, or don't see anybody. Any questions or comments from the folks on Zoom? You see any hands up there? I see. Oh, Jessica Soroy. Okay. Yep. Yep. Jessica, if you can unmute there, and we'll get you in on the. Yep.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for going over everything that was discussed at the prior gathering that we had. One of the considerations that I think for me, we sort of in general, as a consensus of the neighborhood, sort of looked at widening the road. And I actually want to revisit the decision to do so of the widening. I do have a parking spot alongside the building that is in the right of way where you're looking to expand, and the right of way comes all the way to the corner of my building. But as it exists currently, I have a parking spot there that actually I put in a handicap accessible door for my business there. I have a ramp that I attach to it when I have a client who's handicap accessible. And with this change, I will no longer be able to park alongside the barn or access that door. And so for the widening right there, it does affect my business. I'm not, I would prefer that the roads stay and remain rather small. With the right drainage has been a problem for 20 years that I've lived here. And at this point, there is gathering of water that is sinking my barn. So I have actually a quite large construction project that's going to go underway because my barn has been sinking due to the lack of drainage in this area. My driveway gets washed out as well. And so there are a couple of considerations that I have. One is that there's the catch basin above my property on the drawings. And I understand that the curb will kind of open up my driveway as it exists now. But what about where will the water run along the road there if there isn't curb in the drainage proposal there? that's my biggest concern. I would hate to lose not only the parking spot that I have had for 20 years and have used. The widening, I would prefer not to widen it. I think it will basically create more traffic, cars going faster speeds. It has remained this size, and to me, to widen it in one section but not at the top of the road in some ways doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me as to why it would widen in that small section of our properties but not at the top of the road. So I guess I've also asked Matt to have the engineer Andrew to come down and stake it out so that we can really visually see the impact to the right of way that you're taking from the properties on my side of the street, along with, I think, Mike Lee and Molly and Rob on the other side of me. I'd like to visually see how much that's going to impact the property, just based upon the proposal of widening.
Yes, thank you. Is the board comfortable with me responding to those?
Yeah, Andrew, if you could touch base on the, what you can there as far as the grade.
Yeah, absolutely. So I certainly understand your concerns. Those were some of the same things that we discussed on site. So it's not a surprise. And I think what we came up with regards to that, it's not on the current plans. I have it in front of me in a big magenta line, quite honestly. But it says need one parking space to come off for the Hodgson Street in your area. And we are able to fit a parallel space, basically utilizing that existing driveway area that you have now into the plan. So you can pull a parallel space off Hodgson Street. You can park safely off the edge in that same location and still have your ADA access to that. So it's
okay. And that will be curbed as well, right there, right in front of there, or not?
It'll be curbed up to the opening, and then there'll be an opening for your parking space that will be uncurbed, and then the curbing will pick back up. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the water from that road just above that.
Yep.
The road is actually being slightly pitched away. We can do this with grading. So it rolls over, if that makes sense. So our grading will pitch from one side to the other slightly so that it'll pull the water out into the road and then down back to the curb when we finalize the designs here. So basically the water, before it really starts accumulating, will swing out and around that area and then back down to the curb. That's going to pick up just below where that curb cut's going to be for your parking space there.
Okay.
So it will make sure that we're not creating anything, we're not dumping anything in that location, and we're still able to maintain it. You're going to notice a significant change once we're able to eliminate all that water above your property. There's a couple of large weeps that come from some wetlands up 2 properties from you on the north side of the road. So we're going to be able to collect all that, get it in a system, and get it underground there.
Okay.
The reasoning for widening the road through your section is due to that's where the congestion is. That's where you're more likely to have multiple vehicles passing, coming and going. Quite honestly, when I went out there, one of my trips, I had to stop in the road. It was in the winter. I had to stop in the road, back up a little bit, and let somebody into one of their driveways that I started coming down. It's a blind road. You can't see well on it. It's hard to maneuver around people. I know you guys deal with it every day, but somebody like me who doesn't ride that road often, I kind of came up over the hill and then there was a car coming at me as I was proceeding down the hill. So I'm like, okay, so it is a non-traditional situation. And as an engineer, I always recommend having, if it's going to be a 2-lane road, you need to have the width to pass 2 vehicles safely. Rather than force somebody in a situation of having to back up or know what's going on in that area. So that's why we propose to just widen it through those driveways, through those basically the 6-7 houses there, which all have driveways off that section. Once you get beyond that, I think the congestion is going to be significantly less as we go up past the cemetery, and the sight lines greatly improve, so you can see people. And the road through those upper sections is quite a gravel shoulder on there, so you can sneak by somebody if you have to. You can get off the road a little bit in a couple of spots once you get up through the cemetery area. But that's why I kind of recommended just doing this lower section and then tapering it back down. Granted, I agree. Ideally, you would widen this road to 18 feet the entire length. But I think that might have to be a project for phase 2 when funding becomes available and the need is required for that section.
Okay. The last question I have is like elevation. How much is that going to change the elevation of the land there?
Minimally, actually, we're actually gonna blend that in. So I'm looking at currently your driveway is at elevation 36.
Okay.
And at the street level, it drops down to about 35.5. We're actually gonna pull that elevation up in your location to avoid that drop in that section. So it's actually gonna lift it up a little bit so that we can control water and kind of pitch it back towards the road.
Okay.
In general, though, we're trying to match the elevations at about where the center line of the road. So as we come down the road from the cemetery, it's all going to be about the same elevation until we get to where the Blue Haven Lane is. And
Okay.
once we get to Blue Haven Lane, it's really steep through that section. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to flatten some of that road out through there. So what that will do is it's actually going to fill. We're going to increase the road elevation for about 150-foot section until we get down towards the intersection where it's starting to flatten out again. And we're going to do that so that we can create a better transition, a better grade, a flatter grade through that section and improve that. That's why we have to actually fill a little bit along that nice wall down there so we can pull the road up just through that section of road and be able to improve that transition a little bit.
Okay. And another question I do have is, as far as funding goes, I understand, Matt, that the first phase was approved for the grant money. And then, so where are we now? What are the next steps and like the likelihood of timeline for this project to be underway?
Okay. So we did submit the letter of intent, and that's the first hurdle, or the first stepping stone, for lack of a better word, that you have to achieve before you get to the next phase of the process. The Office of Community Development reviewed our letter of intent and said we meet the criteria for a public infrastructure grant. And what that means is we can go to the next step, which is the full application. And we compete against everyone else in the state who is looking for similar type grants. The meeting we're having tonight is the formal public hearing. That's an integral part of the whole application process. So we have Linda Letney, who's recording the meeting, taking good notes and all your comments, and we'll have the Zoom recording as well. That all gets submitted to CDBG with the application. The applications are due, I think, March 27th, I believe. And then we would expect to hear hopefully sometime in April on whether or not we've got the grant dollars become available on July 1st or after. And then hopefully we could get to this project this fall. The grant just covers the storm drainage part of it, which I believe is 86,800. That's our request. And the town has to come up with at least 25% of the grant, which is more than covered by the amount that the town will be setting aside in our capital reserves. That's another 122,800.
Okay.
So we've got the town match covered with the dollars that we're putting in for the road improvements. But that's the plan. And Mary Ellen, who's our regional representative for CDBG, can correct me if I said anything incorrectly, but.
Not so far. And it has been very competitive. So this is great that you're.
We're gonna grab a mic there for you.
Yeah, let's give.
Sorry.
I forgot the
That one
routine
up?
here. Forgot the routine.
Bring straight ahead. Yeah, you can just you introduce yourself.
Okay, Mary Ellen Barnes with Lincoln County Regional Planning. So these funds are very competitive. So we've got communities all over the state that are going to apply for this, but this is a modest project. It's in a neighborhood that deserves it because of the low to moderate income factor, and it's well designed. So I think you've got a great chance. The last, 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
We haven't been able to compete for it because
That's
of the
right.
backlog of other things occurring across the state. So this is the first year in a few that we've been able to go for that. Sorry, Jessica, I'm not
Thank you.
speaking to you, but thanks.
They've had a lot of grants that had to do with mandated sewer improvements across the state. And so we couldn't even apply for a grant until now.
Okay. Last and final question is, if we don't get the grant, what happens to dealing with the road and the drainage? Is it going, like, what happens at that point? Because for the personal reasons of having to raise my barn and put a proper foundation, that if the road is not maintained in a way that is dealing with the drainage, I'm going to find myself in a situation again, compromising the investment that I'm making on the property. And so I guess I want to know, if the grant doesn't go through, what happens with the road and it is pretty, it's a mess, and so where does the town prioritize taking care of the road? Not only for pedestrians, but for just basic, travel by car. If we don't get the grant, I guess I'd like someone to speak to that.
So I've requested in the FY23 budget, 98,000. The board doesn't know that yet because I haven't given them the detail of the capital reserves. That won't come for another 2 weeks. And then in addition, we had 25,000 that we set aside last year for this. That's going to give us the, approximately 123,000 that we need for the road improvements. I think, to answer your question directly, though, if we don't get the grant, we're just going to have to see what we can do with the dollars that will be available through the town's capital reserves.
Okay.
But I guess I'm optimistic. We've really got our act together. We've met the requirements for the low and moderate income survey. We've been bending the ear of the folks at the community development office in the state, so they're well aware of our desires, and in the past that's helped. So, and we've got Mary Ellen Barnes on our side.
Very, very good chance of getting this through. So we'll
I'm
stay
optimistic.
positive.
I'm
Yeah.
optimistic.
Great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah. Anybody else on the Zoom call that has any questions or comments? We have, I believe that's Mike Lee. Like, right? Yep. Mike, go ahead and unmute there and go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm an abutter too on the Hodgson Street. I just want to ask, is the 18 feet a recommendation, or is that a code enforced position from the town or the state? Where does that 18 feet come from?
So, yeah, the 18 feet actually is a recommendation that we determined, talking with the road commissioner, working with Matt to kind of get this down narrower than possible. So the ordinance, the town ordinance, indicates that it should be 20 to 22 feet wide for the road width. That's what the ordinance calls for. So if this is a new road, it'd be a minimum of 20 feet wide to serve this neighborhood. So because we have the existing condition, it's less than that. And knowing that if we put a 20 foot wide road through that section with proper shoulders, it would significantly impact all the abutters there. So we came up with a compromise, and that's where that 18 feet ended up coming from. So obviously we narrowed it up as much as we could, that you can still get 2 vehicles comfortably by in that location, and working, like I said, with you and Matt, that's where we ended up.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. Yep.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
So the question is, how long will this road surface last? How long before we have to replace it? And is there going to be an extra cost based on the fact that it's extra wide?
The current road that you have, or the new?
Yeah, well, basically, once we build this new infrastructure, not only do you have to pay for it in the upfront cost, being 18 feet wide is, obviously more expensive than, say, the 15 feet wide or 12 feet wide that you've described. We're then going to have to upkeep that road at 18 feet wide. Is there any? Can you speak to that? How long is this road going to last? How long before we start having to pay upkeep costs on it?
When you put a road in place, depending on the traffic, determines how long it'll last. Depending on the quality of construction, all those things. But when you put in a road like this, you get about 10 years of hopefully hands-off approach to the road, depending on how much is rebuilt. So if you start from the ground up and rebuild, you can start stretching that a little bit further. So you get with that about that 10-year window with hands off, and then you have to get into having to maintain the road, doing crack repair, potholes, stuff like that, because just asphalt starts to degrade. This is a very low volume road. There's just you guys right there that are using it. So I don't anticipate that that you're going to have much maintenance requirement probably for the first 15 or 20 years on that road. The one thing I'll point out when you're talking about cost, your plow guys and the people that are plowing the road are going to benefit from the widening of the road. It makes their lives a lot easier. It makes it simpler for their process to be able to get the plows through that section. I'm not sure they can actually get through some of those sections there based on the way the snow was piled up. It looks like they actually had to stop to maneuver down through those. There was snow banks that were kind of pushed off to the side in odd locations that I anticipated was from some of the plowing. But I think you'll simplify that process in the sense. So I'm not sure the true cost offsets. I haven't done a long-term study on that, but you will get into maintenance and having to maintain the road in general, down the road at some point. And whether it's 15 or 18 feet, I'm not certain that that's going to be a substantial cost change. Definitely when you go to add pavement and when you overlay that road in 20, 25 years, yes, 3 feet wider is a little more pavement, but it's not a direct proportionate thing because you have your contractor there, you're already paying for them to be there. It's easier, just as easy for them to pave 18 feet as it is 15 because you can't do it in one pass. So they're going to be doing it in two anyway. So there's some cost sharing there that happens that it's not a direct proportionate of say 10% more.
Thank you. Go ahead. Do you have another question, Mike?
I'm just trying to piece it together. The road, the town is going to possibly put up $100,000 towards this project. It's going to last 10 years, and the sort of tax revenue from the neighborhood, does that add up to the 100,000 that we're going to pay for this road?
And just to be clear, in 10 years, it's not going to fall apart.
Right.
So in 10 years is when you start getting into normal maintenance. Somebody's going to have to go out there and probably fill in a crack or a pothole at the edge of somebody's driveway in 10 years. And like I said, it'll probably stretch out to 15 or 20 due to the low use that you have. So your drainage system is the priority number one out there. The lack of drainage, the degradation to the properties, the erosion that's occurring. That's the primary goal of this project to begin with. That's not going to go anywhere for the next 50 to 100 years. So that's going to be in place. That's a permanent solution. It's just that surface course of the asphalt. That's the thing everybody sees. You put a new road in and 15 years later, there's a pothole in it. And everybody's like, well, you just did that 15 years ago. But ultimately, asphalt wears out. That's what it's made to do. And you have to patch it. So with the infrastructure of the road, the culverts, I think you're talking that 95% of this is not going to fail for the next 50 to 100 years. We're talking about that 5% surface asphalt that will need to be redone and maintained in that time window that we discussed.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions or comments at this point? Good. We have looks like Derek Weber. Yep. Derek, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm not a resident, but I live nearby, and I walk this road almost daily, so I'm very familiar with it. And I'm sort of calling in on this meeting to offer my support, because this road is and has been in a terrible condition for a very long time. And I'm so glad you're actually planning to do something. And there's a grant which we can get access to, which I support this whole process. It's something that's been needed. I'm not even sure of the details, but I'm just glad something's going to happen here. Just to mention that I think it's actually even a safety and health matter. I see children, handicapped people, and when this road's flooding and freezing, it's treacherous. Yeah. Something I'm so glad you're going to do something about it. So let's move ahead on it. Just on a totally related matter, but it doesn't affect the what we're doing here, but just to point out that this road is actually part of the Damariscotta measured mile, which has pedestrians walking around it for health and exercise purposes. And in the summer, that includes town visitors. And the way things look at the moment, it does not look good for our community. So very many thanks to Matt for putting this whole thing together, and my support that we proceed with it, and hopefully we'll get the grant. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you. Any questions or comments from any of the board members or here? Okay. I think we're good. We can move. Do you need a motion, or is that the?
Close the hearing now, and then you
Yeah,
take
yeah,
action
there's
on it.
no other
here
questions or
in
comments.
the next
We'll we'll close the public hearing. And we will call the March 2nd Select Board meeting down at Damariscotta to order. And first action here is we have a motion on the table.
I'll make a motion to approve an application for community block grant funding for the Hodgson Street project.
Second.
2 seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, there we go. Let's get it
Thank
done.
you all.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Molly.
We'll get that.
All right, wonderful. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Andrew.
you,
Thanks
Andrew.
everybody coming in. Yeah. Okay. We'll get moving on that. So let's move on to the minutes, February 16th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 16th.
Second.
1 second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Who they, Tom.
I'll make a motion to
And we're
approve
moving
payroll
on,
warrant 47.
move on to financial reports.
Gotta get 6:30.
I will second that.
Lou seconds. This is on payroll warrant number 47. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right. I'll make a motion on AP 48.
Second.
Tom seconds. Any discussion? No. All those in favor? Okay, we have one opposed. And AP 49. I'll make a motion on that as well.
I'll second.
Josh seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, move that along. All right, and we have Patty Whitten coming in, correct? Is Patty up
Mhm.
there? Yep.
There's Patty.
Patty, can you hear us? Are you ready for your presentation?
I am. You guys are quick.
Okay, oh yeah, we're getting you, yeah, we get you set right up here, so. Josh just got dinner on the table, he said, so he's.
Yeah.
And
The information that Matt forwarded to you is the summary of the situation. I'd suspected for several years this was the case, but it took a while to go through some records. It's always harder to prove a negative in research than a positive, as in proving that something did not happen. So I was taking my time and being careful to check as much documentation as I could find to make sure that it had not been changed at some point. I can find no evidence of a change. So it does appear to me, I'm not a property attorney, I'm not a title searcher, none of those things. It's strictly an amateur researcher. But there were 4 quarter-acre sites deeded to the town of Noblesboro in 1790 for use as public burying grounds. They were accepted by the town. There is a clear vote in the clerk's minutes from Noblesboro. I find no evidence that there was ever any change to that. And then when Damariscotta separated from Noblesboro and Bristol in 1848, that documentation from the state archives and the state legislative history documents indicates that all the land south of a line, a particular line, now belongs to the town of Damariscotta. Therefore, 2 of those 4 cemeteries landed on the Damariscotta side of the line when we split off.
Oh.
And as best I can determine, that means those are now Damariscotta public cemeteries. One of them is on the bypass between Belvedere and the bridge. Visible in the wintertime, not visible in the summertime due to the trees between there and the road. The other one is a quarter of a mile down in the woods, and literally down in the woods.
In the woods. Okay.
In the vicinity of Egypt Road and Back Meadow corner. The trailhead is on Back Meadow, very close to Egypt.
One down in, yeah, yeah.
And so we have to maintain the trail to that as well. There are veterans in both of these. We have a Revolutionary vet in one, and in the other one, we have a French and Indian War vet, Revolutionary vet, and 3 1812 vets.
Oh, it's fascinating.
So we have to maintain those graves by state law anyway, and access to them. Up to this point, the Amherst-Cotta Historical Society has paid for those to be cut. They're larger than our volunteer cadre can handle. We have determined through experience that 2 cuts per year is the minimum to keep a site from going back wild. And so that's what we've done, just to keep them from going wild. They are not what I would consider well kept, but at least we keep them tamed. I have not requested any money in the current FY23 budget planning to maintain those. I would expect in the future, we probably will need to spend some town funds to be able to maintain these as they are town properties. I did note in the longer attachment that Matt sent out, we have never found any original burial records for either site. And in consequence of that, I would not sell a lot in there. I would not authorize a burial in there because we truly do not know where everybody is.
Mhm. Oh,
Any questions?
thank you, Patty. That's
Interesting.
that's a lot of history, a lot of digging there.
The 2 other trustees from the cemetery committee are
We have
online
Lorraine
as
on.
well. Lorraine Faherty and Martha Dodge.
Martha, okay. Yeah. Do either Martha or Lorraine have anything to add to Patty's summary? I think Lorraine was shaking her hand there. Go ahead and unmute, Lorraine.
These are not cemeteries that are going to be pristine and lovely like, say, Hillside is. They're not ones you'd want a lot of visitors tromping around in if they didn't have a relative there. But we are mandated by state law to care for the veterans' graves. So, and there is no definition in the state law, as I remember, of what a veteran is. So it can be anybody from Iraq all the way back to 1812 or Revolution, and we have I think it's 2, Patty, for sure, that are British that fought on the other side, and they're veterans. We put a little British flag up there, so we do have the obligation to maintain at least access to these properties, so we can do that. So,
Thank you, Lorraine. Yep. Anybody have any questions or comments for the cemetery trustees?
No,
Yeah. Well, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm impressed by the amount of research that was done.
Yeah. Yeah. We thank you
It did
guys.
take me a good part of a winter sitting after supper nights, reading all of the Nobleboro town minutes from 1790 to 1850 in the old script.
You must have found some other fascinating, we can have another discussion another night. We must have some fascinating stuff going through all that.
Oh, indeed. And in fact, we were able to identify a death date that had not been identified in any other records because
Oh,
of
wow.
a signature in those records.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, to echo Lou, I said, we're all impressed with all your work in keeping up with the town cemetery, and in that respect, the history, there's a lot of history involved there. So that's, we appreciate your stewardship.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. They do a lot of hard work, don't they? Matt, you're quite involved with them. So, yeah. You do the heavy lifting on the stones.
That's right.
Yeah.
Heavy lifting.
He does, and we're very grateful for it. We're we're kind of holding out, wondering what's going to happen next on that department, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
I will just say that we're basically looking for the town to recognize that it does in fact own these two properties and will have some ongoing fiscal responsibility for them over time. As Lorraine said, we wouldn't keep them at the same standard that we do Hillside, Bethlehem, and Walpole, but they really do need to be kept better than Historical Society has been able to fund to maintain them. So somewhere in between those two is what we'd be looking at down the road.
Sure. At some point, Matt, is there a formal recognition? Or is it-
I've got to ask the town attorney for what that entails.
Yeah.
It may just be a recognition by this board that this is what this is what was included in the transition
Yeah.
from
Yeah. So
Noblesboro
if you
to
need to-
Damascotta. But let me,
Something official, let us know.
Yeah.
But I think we.
yeah, I will. I don't know if it,
Anecdotally or not anecdotally,
I guess
we can all.
the question in my mind is whether it takes town meeting action, but
Right,
we'll,
yeah.
we'll find out.
Okay. Yeah, I believe we have the board support anyways.
I'm going to suggest that the town meeting action would have been, a number of years ago before any of our time, when they accepted that property.
17.
Yeah, you had town meeting action in 1790 that is documented.
That's right. And the other thing I can assure the board is the three of us are the most, I don't know, what's the right word, parsimonious, cheap. We are very careful with the money. So
They are.
And we
Yeah.
appreciate that. You guys are. You do a great job. So we trust you, your judgment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. So,
thank you.
yeah, if there's any other, go any further, let us know. But
Okay,
don't think
I
there's
will.
Any problem recognizing it. So, all right. Are there any citizen comments or anything you've gotten in, Matt? Yes, please, Mary, come on up.
I'll just be brief here, Mary Ellen Barnes again. So I know we just, guys, thank you for advancing the infrastructure application. So I know that just recently, over the last several months, we've heard about all this millions of dollars of infrastructure dollars. But for the most part, for the last several years that I've worked with the town, the CDBG program has been the only one that's been matched that has funds for you to tap into. And I just want to say how much respect I have for the town and for Matt for all of the multiple projects you've developed over the years. First, maybe with Greg Zinser in 2009, but then after that, I think, 3 or 4 projects that have really improved the neighborhoods, storm drainage, water connections, sidewalks. And I just give you guys a lot of credit and Matt a lot of credit for keeping an eye on the ball, getting them so well designed, getting the public engagement. We've had great small committees that had to have been formed out of the community development process, which is, I know, complicated. But you guys have just done it well. You've aced it every time. And I'm so proud of the work that you've accomplished. And I know Matt might be calling me tomorrow for help with the grant. So that's partly why I'm saying that. No, I do want to just say that it's been a pleasure to work with the selectmen and with Matt since, I can't even remember the year.
A decade, yeah.
A decade. But yes, but thank you for the fine work you've done for this town. So-
Likewise, yeah. You've been a
Thanks,
great,
Mary
great,
Ellen.
great help. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. And all right, we can move on to town manager items. We've already, the tribute and the reports. We've got that
Right.
covered for you right now.
We
So
have that. And then the only other item I had, I just got word over the weekend that Newcastle selected a new harbor master. And as you know, they're the administrative town for harbor management. So we depend on them like they depend on us for the Shellfish Committee. But Eric Peters was appointed as the replacement to Paul Bryant. Paul has held the position for several
Forever?
decades now,
2
and
years,
he's the
yeah.
only harbor master I think we've ever had. So, but Eric has been working with him. He was deputy harbor master for quite a few years, and is very familiar with the harbor. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Does-
so-
does- he puts
so I
all the
think he's
moorings in.
a great
We lucked
choice.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
That's-
fortunate.
Great choice.
What I'd like to ask the board to approve the appointment, and then you'd be asked to reapprove the appointment when you have to make all of the confirmations in July. But for the interceding couple months, I'd like you to,
approve the appointment for the appointment.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, since Newcastle Board of Select Board has already made that appointment. I'd like you to
I'll
confirm that as well. Yeah.
make that motion to approve the appointment of Eric Peters, and Tom seconds it. So any discussion? All those in favor?
And a big thank you.
I think we can do that. Yeah, that's good.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Choice.
And
Okay.
that is all I had.
And yeah, so we can move on to what official action items, Matt. You've got, we just have one tonight, right?
You have two. I
Oh, the
added
quick claim
one
is not on there.
yesterday.
That's
Yeah,
right. We've got the quick claim.
or Friday.
Yeah.
And
So we've got the shellfish resource study. That's just
yeah, we were successful at getting that grant for
Oh,
the
great.
third year in a row,
great.
the third time in 4 years. Yeah.
Awesome. Who would like to accept the 10,477?
I will make a motion. We accept the 10,000.
Second.
All right, Lou, Tom seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. There we go. You just need a motion on the quick claim deed, right?
Right.
What do you need for wording on that, Matt? That's just,
It's a quit claim deed to Dean Jacobs.
Okay.
He's paid the back taxes.
Yep.
And
yeah. So you just need to make a motion to approve the quick claim deed to Dean
So
Jacobs?
that's just what you need to, there's, I think.
Yeah.
That all I need?
Yeah, just one.
Yeah,
place.
pretty much.
Okay. I just made a motion to approve the quick claim deed to Dean Jacobs.
Tom beat
Everybody's
Josh. Tom beat me.
All right, Brenner.
Linda, just pick one. I think it was Tom.
Tom was
I'm about
ahead.
to sign this. Let's get a vote on this.
Tom was ahead.
All those in favor? Any discussion? All right, did that backwards, but we're good.
There you go.
Okay, and we can start. Is there any selectmen's discussion items this evening? Tom, start with you.
No, I just want to say that I'm still looking into this flag issue and probably pick it up in the spring, but
Okay, the town
Yeah.
flag, yeah, all right,
going to talk to John Roberts a little bit, get some input.
okay. Lou,
I have nothing.
all righty, Josh?
I just want to say we recently had a fire call down to Walgreens and how great our community is. Individual ran into the building. John Roberts had asked me if I had George Parker's number to come in and just kind of structurally look at the building, and we called him and he was driving by. And by the time John had got inside the Walgreens to tell me, hey, George is on his way, I said, no, he's right behind you. So, how fortunate we are that, that was a major deal and he was there, because we just laughed, and, it's really great that people pitch in when we call. So,
That's one.
but thank you.
That's funny.
So that was one of the funniest things we'd ever said. So that's I think what I got right there.
Awesome. I've got nothing to add this evening.
Josh looks awfully hungry, so I make a motion.
I was plowing about
Do I hear a second?
3:15 this morning, so I'm ready.
Second,
Tom seconds, favor,
All good.
no discussion.
And we do not have a Board of Assessors meeting tonight.
Right, yeah, we're gonna table the Board of Assessors meeting.
So Linda, you're off the hook. You're out of here.